Baylan Skoll's slow, deliberate movement style represents a significant deviation from conventional lightsaber combat behaviors associated with Jedi and Sith practitioners. Within established Star Wars media, speed is traditionally linked to emotional instability, heightened arousal, or aggressive intent. Baylan's consistent rejection of rapid motion demonstrates a psychological and tactical profile structured around composure, controlled perception, and a stable internal state. His pacing is not indicative of physical limitation, but of an intentional method grounded in confidence and situational dominance. His movement can be classified as low arousal, high control kinesics. In combat psychology, such movement patterns appear in individuals who display minimal sympathetic nervous system activation during threat conditions. Rather than responding with accelerated motion, Baylan maintains consistent biomechanics, signaling internal regulation rather than reactive output. This stability reduces motor noise and preserves energy, allowing him to maintain efficiency even in prolonged engagements. The consistency of his gait and posture suggests that he perceives combat as a process to be managed, not a threat to be mitigated. Baylan's stance and stride reflect a closed-loop decision cycle that prioritizes observation over speed. In lightsaber engagements, rapid movement is often employed to create openings or destabilize the opponent. Baylan reverses this dynamic by allowing the opponent to act first, generating a readable dataset of their patterns. His slower approach forces adversaries into offensive behavior, producing predictive movement curves that he can exploit. This behavior mirrors military doctrines, in which a slower tempo is used to dominate the engagement rhythm. His lightsaber swings further support the interpretation that he operates with confidence rather than urgency. Instead of using high-frequency strikes characteristic of Ataru or Juyo practitioners, Baylan utilizes measured, heavy swings aligned with principles of economy of motion. These attacks minimize wasted kinetic output and maximize force generation. Their timing is calibrated to disrupt the opponent's defensive structure rather than overwhelm it through volume. Such strikes are typical of fighters who believe they already control the engagement space. Baylan's posture during duels remains upright, shoulders squared, and weight distributed evenly. This posture is characteristic of individuals who do not anticipate the need for evasive maneuvers. A combatant expecting danger typically shifts into a lowered, reactive stance with greater weight on the back foot. Baylan's refusal to adopt such stances indicates his belief that he will not need to retreat or reposition quickly. His posture therefore functions not only biomechanically, but symbolically, communicating that he does not perceive a credible threat. His facial expression and ocular focus also demonstrate low threat perception. When unmasked, Baylan maintains steady eye alignment and does not engage in rapid eye movements that typically accompany threat assessment. He scans environments methodically rather than reactively. In psychology, this pattern indicates high-confidence situational awareness. The absence of micro-expressions related to stress, such as brow tension or compressed lips, suggests that his cognitive load remains low even during conflict. His slow movements become a visible extension of this calm internal state. Baylan's behavioral patterns align with profiles of combatants who rely on assertive tempo control. By dictating a slow rhythm, he forces opponents into adaptation, increasing their cognitive load and elevating their risk of error. In martial disciplines, controlling tempo is a recognized mechanism for establishing psychological advantage. When Baylan moves slowly, opponents often compensate with faster movements, which increases metabolic demands and reduces their operational endurance. His pace therefore creates an asymmetrical engagement structure. In non-combat interactions, Baylan exhibits the same controlled movement profile. His walking speed remains constant and unrushed, even in urgent contexts. He does not accelerate when entering potentially dangerous environments or when responding to emerging threats. This uniform pacing indicates an internalized belief that speed is unnecessary because he perceives all scenarios as manageable within his existing capabilities. It also suggests a long-term behavioral conditioning that prioritizes clarity and deliberation over rapid response. Baylan's interactions with other characters reinforce his movement-based expression of confidence. In conversations, he often maintains a stable and grounded stance, keeping his hands visible and relaxed. He avoids defensive postures such as crossed arms or closed gestures. Such openness indicates a lack of perceived vulnerability. His slow head turns and measured vocal tempo further align with this analysis, presenting an individual who experiences minimal internal conflict in decision-making. His approach to strategic planning also parallels his physical pacing. Baylan often refrains from improvisational tactics, instead favouring long-term, stepwise objectives. This strategic behaviour reflects a broader philosophical orientation toward patience and control. Individuals who operate with slow physical movements often exhibit parallel cognitive pacing, making decisions through deliberate reasoning processes rather than impulsive reactions. This alignment between physical and cognitive speed underscores the intentionality of his slow movements. Baylan's duels with highly skilled opponents, including Ahsoka Tano, provide empirical evidence that his slow movement is not a disadvantage. Despite the comparative quickness of his adversaries, Baylan consistently maintains dominance through timing and positional control rather than velocity. He intercepts attacks with minimal motion, demonstrating predictive calculation rather than reflexive response. His slow pacing therefore functions as an efficiency-based model rather than a stylistic preference alone. The physiological implications of his movement style also merit attention. Combatants who rely heavily on speed often experience faster fatigue due to anaerobic output. Baylan's slow, heavy movements rely more on sustained aerobic energy systems, allowing him to preserve stamina across extended engagements. His movement therefore reflects a practical adaptation suited to an older but highly trained warrior who compensates for age-related physiological changes with optimized pacing and technique. His rejection of urgency appears connected to his disaffection with Jedi and Sith doctrines. Both groups rely on heightened emotion, whether suppressed or intensified, to influence combat behavior. Baylan operates outside this dichotomy, replacing emotional tension with philosophical detachment. His slow movements symbolize a departure from the reactive nature of Jedi-trained fighters and the aggressive nature of Sith-trained fighters, representing a distinct third mode defined by clarity, intentionality, and equilibrium. Baylan's slow movements also function as a narrative device, enabling visual contrast between him and more traditionally trained characters. In film and television analysis, slow movement often signifies authority, mastery, and internal stability. Directors frequently employ this technique to distinguish characters who operate from positions of power. Baylan's pacing therefore supports his thematic role as an ideologically independent force whose confidence derives from personal conviction rather than institutional affiliation. Baylan's interactions with Ahsoka Tano provide clear comparative data. Ahsoka demonstrates quick footwork, rapid stance adjustments, and elevated reaction speed, reflecting cognitive states shaped by trauma, uncertainty, and unfinished personal arcs. Baylan, in contrast, presents uniform pacing and high-stability posture, reflecting emotional equilibrium. Their contrasting movement dynamics indicate that Baylan's slowness is not a deficiency, but an intentional, behavioral structure rooted in controlled arousal and mission-based cognition. His slow responses during multi-opponent confrontations further support this analysis. When presented with numerical disadvantage, Baylan does not accelerate his pacing, widen his stance, or increase his attack frequency. Instead, he maintains consistent tempo regardless of external variables. This behavior aligns with confidence-based control theory, in which an individual assumes that increased force, not increased speed, will provide the necessary advantage. His confidence in timing and precision allows him to resist the instinctual shift toward rapid motion that most combatants exhibit under pressure. Baylan's dialogue patterns also correlate with his physical pacing. His speech cadence is slow, his sentence structure deliberate, and his tone steady. In interpersonal communication research, slow pacing often correlates with cognitive states associated with certainty and low emotional activation. The parallel between his vocal rhythm and his physical movement indicates a global behavioral consistency rather than situational variance. This suggests his slowness is a stable personality trait that extends across combat, conversation, and long-term planning. His approach to strategic choices reinforces this interpretation. Baylan shows a preference for deferred outcomes and gradual progression rather than immediate gains. He expresses disinterest in rapid shifts of power or impulsive confrontations. This preference for delayed resolution is structurally consistent with his slow locomotion and deliberate strike patterns. Individuals committed to long-term objectives exhibit reduced need for rapid output, mirroring Baylan's steady and unhurried combat methodology. The relationship between physical pacing and goal clarity is well documented in behavioral science. Combatants who perceive themselves as operating within a larger narrative or purpose display reduced physiological reactivity. Baylan articulates a cohesive worldview in which immediate conflicts represent minor components of a broader endeavour. His lack of urgency is therefore a reflection of this psychological framework. Slow motion becomes the behavioural manifestation of a conceptual model that deprioritizes short-term threats. Baylan's age and experience also contribute to his slow movement pattern, although not in the sense of physical limitation. Older warriors with extensive combat exposure often transition toward efficiency-based strategies. Rather than relying on quick reflexes, they rely on predictive reasoning and precise timing. Baylan's slow steps and heavy strikes are consistent with a fighter who has replaced speed-dependent tactics with anticipation and mechanical leverage, reducing unnecessary energy expenditure while maintaining tactical superiority. His interactions with Shin Hati reveal an instructive contrast in mentorship dynamics. Shin exhibits increased speed, sharper reactions, and a tendency toward rapid engagement. Baylan does not match her velocity, but instead recalibrates her pacing through instruction and example. The contrast functions as a pedagogical tool. His slow movement establishes a behavioral template, grounded in discipline rather than impulse. This contextualizes Baylan's slowness as an ideological teaching method rather than a functional limitation.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.